Hello, I'm host Andrew,
And I'm co-host James.
and we're doing episode 2 of Tweedle time. So, James, what topic are we doing today?
We are doing failed wars.
Yep, because history is full of those.
Dude, this is a hilarious topic to go over. So glad we got this for episode 2.
Yep, can't wait to talk about. Today we're going to talk about the Polish-Soviet War, at least to start out anyways. We'll see where this goes.
We got the Polish-Soviet War, the Six-Day War, the Winter War, and then the Emu War.
Yep, because you're bad when you don't lose to a country, but a species of birds.
Oh, I know, it's impressive.
Anyway, let's get to the Polish-Soviet. So, James,
we'll kick this off with the Soviets. You want to start us off with a little bit of backstory?
So basically what ended up happening is World War I happened, the Russians fell apart, and they became the Soviets. So did Germany and Austria-Hungary, but the only part that matters is that Poland became independent. And, the western border was pretty well defined, but the eastern wasn't, and Poland kind of wanted more land. And also didn't want to be part of the Soviet Union again. So Poland invaded the Soviets. So, James, you want to you going to go on to that at all?
Yeah, wait. Poland invaded the Soviets.
Yes, it was the...
Yes. The leader of the Poland, Joseph Piłsudski, decided that they were just going to invade Russia, attack them first, since the Red Army with the Bolsheviks was busy fighting the White Army, which were the Tsarists. They still supported the Tsar, even though that guy, no one really liked him very much.
But then again, do you really want the Bolsheviks?
It was more the idea of the Tsar. I still supported the Whites, because I don't like communists.
I'd rather take a constitution. Maybe it most likely would have been a constitutional monarchy at that point because the Tsar would not have been able to have absolute authority.
Yeah, the Tsar wouldn't have had absolute authority.
But nonetheless, that they didn't win because communism.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. Anyway, the Poland attacked Poland attacked Russia. Wow, that took a lot to get out. Okay. Poland attacked Russia, 1919. Year 1919. Unfortunately, they were pretty disorganized, but they did, because Russia was so distracted, they won a couple of battles and had a couple of stalemates. They just slowly pushed into Russia.
See, the other interesting is that the Polish actually weren't alone. They had an ally in Ukraine, but not really. They didn't really like each other, but they also hated Russia just as much as each other, so they wanted to attack Russia.
Yeah. They also had, they were getting arms from Hungary and Romania, that they didn't really want to send troops to fight. So.
As well as the West started sending resources.
Yeah, the West started sending resources to help them out.
Because the thing was, the main reason why this war was going on still is because, despite the fact that Poland attacked first, the Russians very much did want to conquer Poland.
Yes.
The three reasons being, A, they were part of the empire at one point. Yeah. B, because why not? And C, mainly because they wanted to get to Germany, and they can get aboard with Germany, you had to invade Poland.
Yeah, they wanted to get to Germany so that the socialists in Russia could meet up with the socialists in Germany and then take over Germany, and then there would be socialist Europe.
Yeah, they'd be so good to be a great socialist nation, except for that didn't happen because there's the Poles.
Yeah, the Poles were better at fighting. The war the civil war between the Reds and the Whites in Russia was wrapping up, so Lenin told Trotsky to figure out how to beat Poland and Ukraine.
But then Trotsky's like, how about we don't have we just literally just got our finally won the Civil War, we're not ready for a war. Lenin's like, but communism is spreading the revolution.
So go take over all of Poland because we say so.
Fine then.
So yeah, Trotsky didn't really have much of a choice. This was the government that would kill you for disagreeing. So he told two dudes, Turkeshki,
and this other guy that you may have heard of.
Yes, Stalin. Not that important figure. Totally faded out of history after this whole thing.
And this is the only time you'd attack the Ukrainians.
Oh, the only time. Yeah, this is just the one time. But he had Turkovsky attack the Poles in the north and Stalin go to the south to attack Ukraine.
They did actually start seeing some success. But there was some issues.
There were a couple Turkovsky was doing good.
Yeah.
He was pushing the Poles back because the Poles were still pretty disorganized because their whole military system was an amalgamation of 3 different nations trying to make a military system out of that.
But nonetheless, they did make some progress. Nonetheless.
Russia was pushing. They beat Russia while Russia was going at them, but they were still losing. Yeah. So they got pushed back to Warsaw, which is Poland's capital.
Yep.
in the south, Stalin decided that he didn't want to destroy the Ukrainian army. He wanted to take a city.
Because why not?
It was the Luf.
Yep.
Luf.
It's so important that
Lviv.
everyone's heard of it.
Lviv.
And James knows how to pronounce it because that's how important it is.
Yeah, I wrote down. I have the pronunciations. It's spelled Lwow, and it's pronounced Lviv.
Lovely.
Because other languages are so good with pronunciation.
But nonetheless, eventually what ended up happening is that there was an opening in the line between the Soviets because it was such a massive border.
Yeah.
And the Polish took advantage and managed to encircle some troops. Also, as I mentioned, that this was actually a war of cavalry because this would end up being the last battle of cavalry, as in total and just in general, because it would become outdated because tanks eventually become good.
Are we still talking about Warsaw, or are we talking about Komarov?
A little bit of both.
No, we gotta do Warsaw, then Komarov.
I'm just bringing like an idea telling you mentioned the fact this is all cavalry based.
No, it's not all cavalry.
Well,
based.
for the most part.
Cavalry plays a major role. This is like the last war where cavalry plays a major role.
Yep, but nonetheless, let's get back to it.
So Turkovsky had his army going to take Warsaw, and the Poles were arming basically everyone they possibly could to defend themselves, and they ended up like getting a surprise attack on the Soviets army because of position, geological location thing.
For everything the Poles lacked, they had one thing, and that was spirit and just a national identity, which pretty much every Pole was willing to defend.
Yeah, from what I saw, they were on this slope, and the Soviets were on the top of the slope. And when the Soviets tried to go over the slope, they got ambushed and destroyed.
And the rest of the army had to retreat and was left. They took so many prisoners. They took more Soviet prisoners than they took casualties.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. But after that, they went south with their cavalry to Stalin's army at Lviv.
And then they got encircled as well because they realized, oh, we're alone.
Who got encircled?
I'm pretty sure the troops that some of the troops that were like it was like the Seventh Army. Seventh Army.
Seventh Army of who? Poland?
That was of Russia.
Oh, Russia's Seventh Army?
Yeah, I think I got encircled very correctly.
Oh, yeah. This was the last great cavalry battle, the Battle of Komarov.
Yeah.
The Soviet cavalry, which vastly outnumbered the Polish, was utterly destroyed. By that, it was bad, how bad they were beaten.
Yep.
And then with both Tchaikovsky and Stalin having failed, Trotsky tried to sue for peace.
And while kind of saying "told you so" to Lenin.
Yeah, he kind of stuck that to Lenin a bit. The Poles chased after Tchaikovsky's army, beat him another time got another victory, beat him in another battle, and then with the West telling the Polish to chill out, and stop now, they decided to negotiate for peace.
They ended up getting a pretty massive border. They took the rest of Ukraine that wasn't occupied by the Soviets.
Yeah, they took a bunch of Ukraine, but...
And they basically ruined a relationship with everyone around them.
Yeah, all the nations that became independent from Russia now didn't like Poland very much.
Yeah.
Soviets really hated them for doing that.
And the border they took was so big and undefendable, and just not even generally good, even economically.
Yeah, it was kind of a garbage border. But, oh well, they got land and they beat the Soviets. So, good stuff.
Yep, that was pretty much it. The Soviets got destroyed.
Yeah, Russia, it's funny, for how big Russia is and how awesome their military is, they are bad at fighting.
Yeah.
We might have to do a whole second episode of Failed Wars at Russia edition.
I came like 5+ on top of my head. That's just beautiful.
Oh, no, it's ridiculous. All right, shall we move on to the 6-Day War?
Yeah, it seems like a good time to move on.
Otherwise known as the Third Arab-Israeli War.
Yeah, the Arabs didn't learn their lesson. Like, seriously.
They kept going after Israel. They don't like Israel very much.
Like,
kind of makes sense.
It's basically what happened to Bulgaria in the Second Balkan War. Everyone around them was declare war in Bulgaria.
Yeah, and then... Except instead of getting destroyed like Bulgaria did,
it was the exact opposite.
Yeah, Israel actually took a bunch of land in this war and beat everyone.
It's kind of surprising that with U.S. support you could win anything.
Wait, Israel had U.S. support?
Well, not directly. Just like a lot of their arms dealing was from America, which.
Are you sure? Because no, they had a lot of tanks.
Yeah.
That weren't from the U.S. They just scavenged tanks. They had a bunch of tanks from World War Two, like the M4 Sherman.
I was
The,
gonna hope not
Patton
from World
tank.
War One. Those.
Yeah, if they were getting them from World War One, they're kind of screwed.
But yeah, it was pretty much the Soviets wanted to back the Arabs, and then America backed
The
Israel.
the Arabic coalition
Yeah.
was what the Soviets were backing, which was Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, which are like the three neighbors of Israel.
Yep.
And then Iraq figured they would get in on this, and they sent some expeditionary forces to fight as well.
But that.
Everyone was ganging up on Israel in that whole bit.
Yeah, and just to give a like an idea what happened. So basically, I think very quickly for this one, they planned to blockade the I forget what it's exactly called, but there's a gulf there where Israel has to do most of the shipping, and then Egypt's like, let's just block that.
There was a very important gulf for trade in the what's the sea to the south of
I know that's
like Anatolia?
I know we're talking that would be the Red Sea. I know it leads into the Red Sea.
Yeah,
anyways.
they had a gulf that leads into the Red Sea, so it was very important for trade. And Egypt put up a blockade so they couldn't get out. So then Israel was very mad at Egypt, and Egypt wanted to fight Israel along with everyone else.
And technically, it should have been an act of war, but America's like, just give it a minute.
Then they didn't.
Yeah, and then Israel was like, let's just do a bit of a surprise attack on all the Air Force.
Yeah, Operation Focus, seriously one of the most successful operations I've ever seen in my life.
It's like Pearl Harbor, but actually good idea.
Yeah, imagine a surprise air attack that works perfectly. It was phenomenal. So, Israel is seriously outnumbered in aircraft. They have like the Arabic coalition has 3 times the aircraft that Israel has. So Israel figures we will just like complete diversion in basically all of our media and everything, and then surprise attack all of their airfields with our air force. They went to Egypt first and destroyed a ton of their air force.
Which makes sense because Egypt is the strongest in the coalition.
Yeah, Egypt was the strongest of the coalition, so they hit them first. In response, Jordan and Syria sent some of their air force to attack Israel. So Israel's air force just kind of swooped out from Egypt and went up to Jordan and Syria and destroyed all of their stuff as well. So basically all of the coalition's air force was destroyed in that one fell swoop.
And then next came Israel's land invasion, which was far from being bad at all. This was pretty good.
Oh yes, because the country outnumbered in this war is the one that decided to go on the offensive. Brilliant.
Yeah, Israel kind of has this mandatory conscription thing because it kind of makes sense. They're kind of surrounded by everyone that doesn't like them. They kind of had to survive. So this is them. They're taking the Sinai Peninsula, which is pretty much important because it can design part of half the Suez Canal.
Yeah, it's the eastern half of the Suez Canal is where the Sinai Peninsula is. So it's like super important to have.
Yeah.
So and Egypt had most of their army there.
Yeah.
And so Israel just kind of pushed in. They beat a lot of the Egypt soldiers and tank divisions pretty quickly with their air force and their tanks and infantry combined.
Yeah.
That air superiority seriously helped. It was basically a German blitzkrieg.
Yeah.
And after all those losses, the Egyptian general pulled a genius move and decided to tell his troops to retreat. Not any specific path of retreat or anything, just retreat. So they tried to retreat, and as they were retreating, the Israelis were attacking them from behind and causing a ridiculous number of Egyptian casualties.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Oh,
Not only that,
good.
but they took 2 other really important gains, which was the West Bank, which pretty much really important because it contains part of Jerusalem, which they had to have, obviously.
Are you jumping the gun on the Jordan front?
A little bit.
There were 3 fronts in this war for our listeners. There was the Egyptian front, which was to the south, the Jordan front, which was to the east, and then the Syrian front, which was a bit north of the
Didn't all of them happen at the same time?
They did, but I figured we would go Egyptian, Jordan, Syrian.
Well, I'm talking about the Jordan one a bit.
No, we haven't finished up with the Egyptian one.
My bad. I thought we... Okay, fine.
All right, it's okay. So then Israel pushed all the way to the Suez Canal, and then they pushed south to take all the rest of the peninsula.
Yep.
And after they took the Suez Canal, Egypt tried to take back the crossings, and they failed.
Yeah, not a good idea.
They took a lot of casualties. Like, thousands trying to take those crossings back, and they didn't.
Because the fun thing about this is the Suez Canal makes a pretty good defense point because it's the decent amount of water they have to go over to get there.
Yeah, no, they weren't getting across with the Israelis there. All right, now we can go up to the Jordan front.
So the main thing they wanted out of it is Jerusalem because everyone wants Jerusalem.
Oh yeah, Jerusalem was kind of like Berlin after World War II, where it was cut in half. Israel had the west half, and Jordan had the eastern half of it.
Which, well, technically they quote unquote call it the state of Palestine, even though it was very much under Jordan control.
Yeah.
Similar how like the Gaza Strip was under Egyptian control, and then I forget what it's called, certain kind of highlands in Syria.
Oh, the Golan Highlands.
Yeah, that's
Golan Heights.
Golden Heights.
That was awesome.
Yeah, pretty much those were supposed because pretty much they wanted Palestine to exist instead of Israel. There was the idea that they wanted,
but Israel said no.
Yep.
Israel said no several times now.
Yeah, there's some, not actually necessarily. They have actually Israel accepted quite a few peace agreements to split up the Holy Land as a whole, and then the Palestinians said no.
We're just gonna take all.
Then they tried it again, and then they said no. They tried it another time, and then they said no.
Wow.
And then Egypt's like, sorry, not Egypt. Israel's just like, well, you know what? Just the answer's now just no. We're not no more of this.
You know what? Fine. If you're not going to accept our agreements, then we just won't accept any of yours.
And yeah, then they went to war with everyone.
Yeah, then they went to war and managed to survive because they're that good.
Yeah, we go back to the whole West Bank. Not talking about.
Are we talking about Jerusalem again?
Yeah, a little bit about Jerusalem.
All right, Jerusalem. You can go back to the Jordan front.
So one of the important things to note about this front is the fact that the main reason why they were able to defend this is because, I think it was a river. This is the only reason why they didn't take it in the first war they had. Same with the Gaza Strip and like the Highlands.
Golan Heights.
Yep. So I don't remember this particularly that well, the whole combat part. Do you know that well?
If I recall correctly, Israel tried to move troops in to the eastern half of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
The Jordanians, is that how you pronounce that? Jordanians?
Jordanians. I'm not sure exactly.
I'm going to call it Jordanians.
People from Jordan. There you go.
I'm not going to say that. That's too long. I'm going to call them Jordanians. The Jordanians had set up defensive positions on the eastern half of Jerusalem, and the Israelis pushed in. They had their paratroopers go around back to surround the eastern half, and then they just took it.
Yoink.
And then there's a couple of cities to the north. There was like a city or two to the north and a city or two to the south.
Yeah.
And so they went and took those as well. So they just took the rest of Jerusalem and then a bunch of land to the north and south of it from Jordan. And all of Jordan, because they were getting absolutely destroyed, they just pulled back. Because Jordan had actually pushed up a little.
Yeah.
So then they just pulled back to their borders.
Because to be frank, it just wasn't worth it.
Yeah, they were losing.
And then in Syria, there wasn't nearly as much gain.
Israel didn't gain a lot from Syria, other than they beat the ever-loving crap out of them.
But it wasn't really necessary. After all, you got the Sinai Peninsula.
Yeah, they got the Sinai Peninsula, which is about the size of Israel at that time.
Yeah, they doubled in size because of the war. Unfortunately, they wouldn't keep this due to peace negotiations, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Unfortunate. Basically, at the Syrian front, the Syrians just attacked first with this. Instead of getting attacked by the Israelis, the Syrians went first.
Yeah.
And then they lost. The Syrians attacked and got pushed back. And so the Syrians decided to stop attacking with ground forces and decided to just do airstrikes. And then the Israelis destroyed all their air force in Operation Focus.
Oh, me.
So then they had no air force to do the airstrikes. And then Israel came and attacked them in the Golan Heights, which is kind of just it was a pretty hilly area, difficult terrain. This would be very defensible.
Yeah, because the last two reasons, like the last one was in conquered areas because it's just the mountainous terrain. Like the other ones were conquered with the river.
Yeah.
Like pretty much the only reason like these weren't conquered in the last wars is just because of terrain.
Yeah, the terrain was pretty hard. Israel still pushed up into the Golan Heights though. Yeah. They took a lot more casualties than they did in the other two fronts.
That's right. Those other one two were relatively flat.
Yeah, the other two, the terrain was a lot more forgiving. This was a lot more difficult for attacking.
Yeah.
But they still did take all of the heights, and then after they took the heights, a ceasefire was negotiated.
Can you just like talk about the fact this all happened in 6 days?
Oh yeah, this was 6 days.
Hence with this name, 6-Day War.
In 6 days, Israel did
And only-
all 3 of these fronts.
And no joke, the reason they stopped is because of international pressure, telling them, like, just relax a bit.
Just calm down. Calm down. You don't need to take all of them.
And then basically everyone around them still mad.
Because they lost.
Egypt was willing to recognize Israel in exchange for the peninsula back. They were still salty nonetheless.
Yeah, I would be salty myself.
I mean, they're just lucky they got to keep it. Honestly, it's
Yeah.
luckier than everyone else. Well, technically, they didn't get to keep the Gaza Strip.
Who?
Egypt.
Oh, that makes sense. It looks like kind of reminded me of like the Danzig Peninsula, where it's just like a bit sticking out into the country.
It's not nearly as bad as the Danzig corridor, though.
Oh, Danzig corridor. Sorry, that was stupid.
It's even worse. It's more like Croatia, but Croatia is kind of a lot more. If you're not talking about, I'll show you a map later.
All right.
Or maybe I'll put it in the podcast. I'll put like a little map showing.
For those of you
Croatia.
who don't know, the Danzig corridor is Germany had a little stick out thing above Poland, and then Poland cut it off. So there's a bit of Germany just isolated in Poland, and then the rest of Germany.
Because the simple fact is that it was the birthplace of Prussia, so we didn't want to take that away from Germany, but they also wanted to give Poland some kind of coastline, and Danzig was really well known for it being the first Baltic port of Poland. So that let's just divide Germany in half. That won't ever annoy them.
Oh yeah, that never annoyed Germany enough to invade Poland.
But there's a few examples in the modern day. We might have to talk about a few of these, but
Yeah.
not right now.
Shall we move on to the Winter War?
Yeah, maybe
All
that's a
right.
good point to start off.
So Winter War.
Oh boy, this is a fun one.
Oh my gosh, so much fun. This was just before World War II. Russia wanted a bit more buffer area between them and Nazi Germany.
No, that was not. It's between Finland, because not Finland was going to side with Nazi Germany, even though they weren't fascist at all, and also because their really important city of Leningrad, which I think was still I don't remember if it was capital still at that time or not. It was at least a former capital. Anyways, but it was 20 feet away from the border, and they thought if Finland joined the Nazis in an invasion, which just happened, which congratulations, they predicted, they just didn't predict the time of it,
Yeah.
that they would be easily seized. So they're like, okay, we'll agree a good deal. We'll give you some of this land in exchange for land to protect our border. And it's like, Finn's like, no, that's an awful deal.
That is a terrible... This is the worst trade deal in the history of trade deals maybe ever.
And then there's like, the only reasonable thing when someone tells you no, you go to war with them.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what everyone did,
So-
especially imperialistic times. They said no, so I conquered them.
So this guy drew up a really good plan to invade right from the capital from South Finland. It was gonna be easy, quick. But then Stalin thinking like, that's too easy. Everyone's gonna think we're weak if we do that. We need to have like a full-on invasion like from every angle.
There were 2 generals for Russia. One came up with the straight to the capital plan, and the other came up with this ridiculously complicated 30 arrows going into Finland plan.
And I was like, you know what? It would be really fun if we did this one because I need to look powerful.
Yeah, let's do the ridiculously complicated plan because glory.
Glory to Mother Russia.
Because glory, him going after glory has never backfired before. Cough, cough, Polish-Soviet war.
That was more Lenin.
No. Stalin was the one who sat down and...
You're talking about that part. You're talking about that
Yeah,
part.
Stalin's sitting in Lviv trying to get the city for glory.
Yeah.
And then he completely leaves Trevorsky up to take Warsaw by himself. Trevorsky gets bodied by the Polish, and then the Polish come down and just destroy Stalin's army. I'd say that was Stalin's fault.
I will say one thing,
there.
though, is he's pretty good at dodging ice picks, unlike Trotsky.
Yeah.
Anyways, back on topics. We don't have all the time in the world for right now, so we gotta get on this.
Yeah, we got to finish this up and then take out the Emu War.
Yeah. So back to the Winter War. So Finland didn't want to exactly get invaded. Brought up a defense.
Yeah, they put up their whole defense force. Unfortunately, Finland is not very big, and they don't have a big army.
It's also cold.
It is very cold there. It was winter when the Soviets attacked.
Hence the name Winter War.
Yeah.
The thing is, Russia, you think, the guy that's really well known for not being able to invade it in the winter, except for the Mongols, of course, but...
Oh, of course, they are the exception. Mongols did nothing wrong.
Okay, anyways. But the thing is, the Finnish winter was just as bad, if not possibly worse.
Yeah, the Finnish winter was just as bad as Russia's, so that wasn't going to give Russia any advantages. Also, the Finns seem to be better at fighting in the winter because they camouflage their clothes white.
It's just like in France in World War One, where they had like these bright blue and red uniforms.
Oh, I know. That's basically what the Soviets were doing, walking around in their brown uniforms in the snow.
And the Finland also had this thing called skis, a really well-known military item.
Oh, I know. Everyone used skis. So useful. But yeah, I don't know how terrifying this would be, but the Finns would just have ski troopers with submachine guns go down hills and just blast the Soviets.
It was so bad and humiliating that the Soviet troops would actually go eat food that was left for them by the Finns because of just how bad their supply went.
Oh yeah, the Soviets had no food, no supplies, basically at all. They stocked up for this to be a 2-week thing.
Yeah.
And then the Finnish started dragging it out for months.
Yeah.
So the Soviets didn't have any supplies.
And then eventually, realizing this isn't working out, after one of the just normal farmers managed to get 250 plus confirmed kills.
Oh yeah, the Finnish snipers were insane. They practiced with their rifles just hunting and that, so they could just endlessly pick off the Soviets.
They
decided and then disappear.
Soviets finally decided, after the death ratio being 160,000 deaths from the Soviets compared to only compared to 25,000 Finnish deaths.
I thought it was 250,000 for the Soviets.
It was probably by the end of the war.
It might have been by the end of the Winter War, 250,000 compared to 25,000.
It was like a 10-to-1 ratio. It was bad. So
it was so bad.
Stalin's like, you know what? Forget this. We're gonna go back to the first plan.
We're gonna go to the other plan. Let's just go to the capital.
And they actually won fairly quickly.
Yeah, because they just concentrated their force into one big army and just...
Finland surrendered. They got their land buffer, which didn't actually matter when it came down to it.
When it came down to the Nazi invasion, it didn't make a difference.
And guess what? Finland did join. Mainly because you attacked them.
Yeah, if they hadn't attacked them, I don't think Finland would have done it.
I don't know, maybe, but it's definitely not certain.
Oof, we don't have much time left. We gotta blaze through that Emu War.
So imagine that you're having a farm, and then imagine you have a nice fence, and then Emo's like, oh, there's some food in here. Let's just bust it down and start eating it. And there's a bunch and then all your crops are gone, and the rabbits run in, and they eat the rest of those left.
Yeah, that's basically why no one liked emus in Australia.
And the thing is that this was during the Great Depression, which made everyone sad.
Everyone was unhappy with that.
So I decided that to go to the government to tell them to do something, and then they asked the military to do something. So they got their machine guns. Like, you know what was really fun? That part where we went to Gallipoli and did so well there that we need to bring our machine guns back to Australia and do just as good in the war.
Oh my God,
which they
so
did, because Gallipoli did not go well.
Gallipoli went so well, you don't even know.
Anyways, we only got a few minutes. Let's get this going.
All right, so the Australian military assigned 3 guys to go and kill all of the emus.
And don't worry, they broadcast this on TV.
Oh, they broadcasted this?
It was just like, watch us, look, our soldiers are so good. And then they shot a bunch, and they killed like what was it the first time around?
Might have been 1 or 2.
And then they all just ran away, and it took like on average like 10 bullets to kill an emu.
Oh my gosh, those things were like meat-covered tanks. They could take a ton of bullets and just keep running.
Someone had a quote. The quote is, "If he had an army full of emus, it would be better than tanks." Because that's how bad it was. They thought
these were absurdly difficult to kill, and they 3 guys were on like a truck, so they would just drive up, see a herd of them, and start shooting, and then the emus would split off into like 2s and 3s and just run in all directions.
And then they'd be gone. The other time, I think at mostly like one of them we got 16 kills.
Oh my gosh, 16 kills! That's so many.
And then eventually, after they eventually said they're done for, and then they came back to it after the farmers started complaining again, and they actually started seeing some success the second time around.
Actually, from what I recall, they just put out a bounty.
No. There was one more attempt at this.
Oh, they attempted again to beat the emus. And they failed.
And then we better than the last one. At the end of the second time around, they had 1,000 confirmed kills.
Oh my gosh, these guys get
out of the 10,000 that they needed to kill.
Ooh, so good.
And it was like this. Okay, so basically you're telling me that you killed 1,000 of these, yes. And that you needed to kill like 10,000, yes. And that you wasted 10,000 rounds of ammunition to do this, yes. I'm not going to give this one to the emus.
What?
No, we won.
No, we won. So then they just put out a bounty on them, and the farmers just started killing them themselves.
Hey, at least you guys get their fur hats out of it. Feather hats. Sorry.
So the farmers just killed them. Oof.
Yeah.
No time left. I suppose that's where we're gonna have to wrap it up for this episode.
And I guess we have to review our next topic as we draw out of a hat.
Yeah. We gotta end this, dude.
Looks like we got space exploration.
Yep. So see you next time.
Yep.